This week on RSBANDB Update, we start off with a bang, seeing the removal of Bounty Hunter. Don't worry though, the rewards are still accessible, and if not, even more so. And is the Wilderness Slayer task list almost perfect, plus off-road discussions on Onyx and the CompCape rework. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 715, recorded Thursday, March 14th, 2019. RuneScape Offroading. Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us once again for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Just Tanis and myself in this week. It's a jam-packed week, one of the biggest weeks that we've had since the mining and smithing rework. So we just need to get down to it and move through everything. And when I say everything, I literally mean everything. This is a packed week.
Yeah.
It was going to be packed. It was going to be packed with the main update of the week. Then we got another hotfix that was heavily controversial. Then we got the dev blog for the the CompCape rework. And then, that's going to warrant its own whole set of discussions as well. CompCape, the community's thoughts on it, our thoughts on it, how we're going to attack that. So we're going to actually, we also got to talk about the wilderness too, which in itself is an interesting topic, I think, because
I've been wondering about that all week. I've been thinking about that. I'm like, how am I going to deal with this? Because I wanted to go out there. Yeah. But then I'm like, I can't go out there because, I've been guesting in Clan Quest, and then the main is in a different clan. I'm like, I could accidentally hit somebody and not even know it, and then next thing you know, you're thrown out or something.
No, I don't.
So I was scared of going out there. I mean,
yeah.
And
I think if you 3-item it, you're fine, but we'll talk more about that in just a bit, providing you don't accidentally aggro anyone. So this, of course, is the Bounty Hunter removal and the reward distribution. And I actually want to talk about the news post in particular before we get into the content of it, because I want everybody to pay attention to the first two paragraphs or so of this news post. So it starts off with Bounty Hunter reward redistribution being the title of the update, but of course what we know this as is Bounty Hunter removal. And in general, when you think of something being removed, it's negative, right? Because it's something that you had that you no longer have. So it's a negative word, removal. So that's point number one, is that there is no negative word in this title. You have Bounty Hunter, which of course is the main object we're talking about. Reward is positive, and redistribution is positive too, in that it means that things are going to be being moved around and perhaps easier to get. So that's point number one. The title does that well. Then I think for the next part, I just need to read into the first two paragraphs of the news post for those of you guys who have not read it, because this is something that really jumped out at me when I first had a look at this post. So here it goes. In the past few months, we've been looking back at old content and thinking about how we can change it for the better. Maybe you didn't hear about it, but in January, we implemented the mining and smithing rework. Later on this month, we'll also be updating fire making. Okay, so starting off with this paragraph, change it for the better. The mining and smithing rework, and later this month, fire making. Now, of course, change it for the better is obvious. Everybody likes quality of life updates, and especially skilling quality of life updates, because we haven't had those in the past for many skills. Mm-hmm. Secondly, mining and smithing rework. Many people, including us, called it the best update that we can remember in a long, long time for RuneScape. Probably the best update ever, right?
Mm-hmm. Drumming up that capital, that political capital they build up.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And then finally, fire making later this month. Everybody is happy about the fire making update. And, there was actually a tweet that went out that said that this fire making rework has been pushed back a week from March 18th to March 25th. And they didn't mention that here. So that's, you could say that they're excluding information from that. But the very fact they didn't mention it here, to me, signifies that this news post is on a positive track and players will get the information they need for the fire making update somewhere else. Now, moving on into the second paragraph, sometimes the best change is to remove content altogether. We had the very best intentions with Bounty Hunter, but over time we realized that the minigame was just not fun to play. This week, Bounty Hunter will be removed from the game, but don't worry, all the content that was previously tied to Bounty Hunter will be redistributed throughout the game. And, you can say what you want about the actual content of this update, the new Slayer Master, but the framing for this news post is just excellent, and it positions this update in a way that this week's update, and when I say this week's update, I'm talking just about the Bounty Hunter removal and the reward redistribution, could not fail. This update this week could not fail, just the way that this news post started out right here this week.
Well, in this, I think another important thing to remember is this really sets the stage for how things can be taken out in the future and decluttered. There's going to be more of that in the years to come, and this is a perfect example of how you do that correctly, and not make people feel like they're losing, but make people feel like we're just shuffling some things around to make it better for you.
And as we mentioned before with the mining and smithing rework, the mining and smithing rework built up a ton of goodwill. And, you can start experimenting with things on here in regards to removing content from the game when it comes to PvP, because let's be honest, how many people PvP in RS3? Not that many. So This was a safe one to start with, rather than taking it up to something a little bit more controversial like fishing trawler or pest control. Actually, not pest control, sorry. I mean trouble brewing or Castle Wars, though I doubt we'd ever see something like that happen with Castle Wars. But you get the idea.
Yeah, it's too entwined,
you get the idea that this is very much a trial balloon for removing content and moving it around to the rest of the game. Yep. So I think the execution on this news post was excellent, to the point that, if you cared little to nothing about Slayer in the Wilderness, you're not going to care about this. But if you cared about, Bounty Hunter maybe just a bit, or maybe the rune pouches associated with it, you would view this update as a little bit more favorably. So that's that side of it.
They did a great job. For once, they got the communication right. Like, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And it even made someone that, like myself, who I dread going to the wilderness. I hate it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with people trying to kill me. And it made me want to go out there and try. I seriously wanted to, you did?
Yeah. We'll talk about
cool.
that after.
You have to tell us about it.
Yeah. But anyways, so let's start off with the new Slayer Master, because I think that's the biggest one. And I think Slayer is still probably one of the most popular skills in the game. And this new Slayer Master, Mandrith, who used to give the rewards for Bounty Hunter, is now a level 85 Slayer Master. And he will give you tasks that might be found in the rest of the world, but here you can only kill them in the wilderness. And I think that, as we were talking about when they first proposed this idea, it was a very unique idea. And, we've talked about PvP in the wilderness before. This is one of those ideas that is, yes, while unique, definitely has the potential to try and reinvigorate some of that wilderness risk. So in case anybody's wondering, the list of assignments that you can, or the creatures you can possibly get from Mandrith, now include Abyssal Demons, Gargoyles, Greater Demons, Ice Strike Worms, Calgarian Demons, Lava Strike Worms, Water Fiends, Dark Beasts, Green Dragons, Revenants, Black Dragons, Black Demons, Blue Dragons, Fire Giants, and Hellhounds. Now, when I got a task from Mandrith, mine was Water Fiends. So that was an easy one to find, believe it or not, because when you look at the Water Fiends, they're right next to Daemonheim. So that was my task, and that's why I felt safe doing that, because I grabbed the Royal Crossbow, some bolts, and the armor, and I just went out for it. It granted, I was carrying some stuff in the inventory that might have been lost if I was there, food wise and whatnot. But, I didn't see much there. So I don't know if that was just my experience or if that's going to be the experience in general, but I didn't see anyone there.
Well,
just to the west, just to the west of Daemonheim. Abyssal demons are apparently in level 17 to 19 wilderness.
Yeah, I just know that from running it, from doing the farm runs.
Okay.
You know, that's when I see Abby's, I know I can tele-tab out.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? The rest of these tasks, I think what we need to also take into account is that if you're using your demonic skull, you're going to get that XP boost as well for this. So I think that is the thing to talk about with this, and the reason for, hey, I want to try and max out my XP per hour as Slayer. Let's go kill some dark beasts. So,
do they have those in Wildy?
Yeah, they're in the wilderness with this week.
See, I didn't know that.
So, you know, it's a 40% increase with this. So if you're in the wilderness killing them, and you know, you get a 20% boost with the demonic skull, that'll take your XP up by just plus 20%. Or if you're on a Slayer contract, that would give you 44% up from the standard 40% boost. So, I mean, what would you do for a 20% boost on your Slayer XP?
I don't know.
That's the question. Are you willing to risk the wilderness for a 20% Slayer boost?
Yeah, I don't know. See, here's the reason that I wouldn't. It's not like a cost analysis. It's a enjoy the game analysis for me. And I know if I'm out there and I get killed, it's going to ruin my session. I'm going to be mad. It's just, you know what I mean? So it's not worth it in that regard to me. But as like, if you're not bothered by that, then, I mean, it's worth the chance, because more than likely you're not going to see somebody, you know.
Dark beasts are in the 4 and 3 dungeon in the wilderness.
Okay.
So, so this is the Slayer table, and I want everybody also to note something about the Slayer table. Are there any tasks on the Slayer table that people don't like? Abyssal demons.
Yes.
Okay. I want you to say if you like the task or if you don't like the task, because I don't know what people put on their prefer list these days. But abyssal demons, yes, for me. Gargoyles,
yes.
Greater demons,
I don't know.
Ice strike worms,
yes.
Calgarian demons,
yep.
Lava strike worms,
no.
Water fiends,
yeah.
Dark beasts,
oh yeah.
Green dragons,
no.
Revenants,
I don't know.
Black dragons,
I guess. It feels low level to me.
Black demons,
Nah.
Blue dragons,
yeah.
Fire giants,
Too low. Mm-mm.
Hellhounds.
Same thing, too low.
Yeah. But remember, you're getting a plus 20% boost on all of these things from what you would normally get.
Yeah, I don't know where that like takes them. I just know like I'm not even familiar with them, because, you know, Morvan doesn't hand them out. So unless, you know.
And, you know, that's also something else we need to discuss with this, is that your block and prefer lists have no effect in the wilderness.
Yeah, I was wondering, can you still cancel with points, though?
Yep.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, you can. You're not locked into it. You know, back in the day when Slayer first came out, before you could cancel tasks, they would give out like 150 steel dragons, and this was 2007. And you know how hard steel dragons were in 2007.
I'm so glad that was before my time. But even for a while, I mean, you have to get all the way to smoking kills before you can even start getting points and start canceling.
Yep.
Task, you know.
Yeah. So, all right. So, you know, I if I feel like if I was doing Slayer and I was doing Slayer daily, I have no problems with most of these creatures, and I would probably do them. The only one that I don't really know how to fight are the Calgarian demons.
Those are okay. I don't like the lava strikes. I just think they're
kind of like mini bosses
for what they are. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them.
But when it comes down to it, if I was doing Slayer today, and you guys can laugh at me for this because I'm not a combat person, I would probably go to Mandrith. Just because this is the easiest way to get a list of tasks that I don't need to build the block and prefer list for.
And that's legitimate. Well, the other thing is like those weapons are actually legit good weapons. Like I would like to have a couple. They're like level 87. There's a bow and I forget what else.
What are you talking about?
The bounty hunter rewards, isn't the bow of, what is it called, decimation?
Oh yeah,
wasn't that a bounty? Yeah. Those are those are good weapons, man. Those are like, if you can't afford a T90 two-hander, I mean, those are good. Like it would be an upgrade for me right now, even to get that.
And then if you're looking at something that does ranged, and I'm not saying everybody can do this, but you can also grab the Hex Hunter bow that just appears in the wilderness. Granted, you'll put an even bigger target on your head. But,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
But,
That's true. Hey, then you could 3-item your armor. That'd be all right. Okay.
Let's see. Decimation. So that's the two-handed ranged weapon. 30,000 bounty hunter points.
Yeah. They were going for pretty good money. I don't know what's happened since the update, but I mean, it's a decent weapon, man.
And I mean, I guess you could use them. It doesn't require ammunition. Mm-hmm. So you could just use it as you normally do. So, okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, with that being said, let's actually talk a bit about the rewards now, the reward rebalance for this, unless you have anything about actual Slayer you want to mention.
Nope.
Okay. So, looking at these, all the weapons in this shop are still 30,000 Slayer bounty points, they call them now. So you can build those up throughout time, and you get a bounty emblem. Though I don't know how you're supposed to get started because I had zero Slayer bounty points, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And when I went to go start my water fan task, it said that I will not get bounty for that task because I didn't have an emblem on me.
I think you get that from the Slay Master. You have to ask him.
Okay, so you're saying I have to ask them.
Yeah, I think that's the way they explained it, was you get it from him, the first one. And then I think it costs points if you have to replace it after that.
That I do see. Let me just have a quick look, see what the wiki has to say about this, because I didn't see any. I didn't see anything on the page that said that was the thing that we can have. So it's awarded upon completion of a Slayer bounty if one is not already owned. Alternatively, it can be bought from the deathmatch shop for 50 points. Slayer bounties are Slayer tasks that we get from Madras. Okay, so you got to complete the task.
Okay, so you'll have yours when you're done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Slayer bounties is that one. Though it does say Slayer bounties are not separate from task. If you have a task, you must complete it before you get a bounty. Okay, that's just worded a bit odd, but that makes sense then. Okay, so you got to do one task in the wilderness, then finish it, and away you go. You can start earning points. And, looking at it from that perspective, I think the rewards in that case become a whole lot more palatable, because you don't need to go through the horrid process that was PvP at the time for that.
Yeah.
So,
or the boosting process, because that's
the boosting process is what it was. So let's be honest about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that covers this very well. And I'm just not sure how many people out there are going to be interested in doing Wilderness Slayer, because it has the stigma of wilderness surrounding it. Because when you do this, you have the same options as you always do. You can cancel tasks. If you have VIP tokens, you get to choose your task and whatnot. So, I think that this is a very good way of raising Slayer, because, I mean, hey, if you even want to skull yourself and go full risk on this for some reason, I don't know if you do, and, it would depend on what kind of armor you are using, you can skull yourself and get the 20% extra Slayer XP with the Demonic Skull. So I think that, in general, what we have here with this week is a good update. Now let's talk a bit about the reward redistribution for this. You mentioned the weapons. Those are already there for 30,000 points. They have removed small and large rune pouches, superior armor sets. The Bounty Hunter teleport is just gone, and the Revenant pet unlock, of course, is gone too. Now, we already talked about the rewards that are in the shop. When it comes down to those rewards, I don't think we had much to necessarily say about those. Adrenaline crystals, Wilderness Hilt, which upgrades Dragon Weapon to tier 70, Ancient Warriors equipment patch, and then the 3 weapons. That's really all that's left in Madras Slayer Bounty reward shop. Any of those rewards stand out to you?
Like I said, I'd like to get a hold of some of the weapons, but otherwise, not really. And that's just because I want to... I just want a little bit less expensive weapons for tasks that I don't need to go all out on,
Yeah.
Because if you do die, it's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, fair enough. And for anyone wondering, the Adrenaline Crystal does make the Adrenaline Potion into a Super Adrenaline Potion. So, I mean, there's that as well. I mean, herblore related, but I don't know. All right. Rune pouches, I think that's the one everybody's most interested in, and this is huge. As we know, we talked many times before about rune pouches. You can now make rune pouches at 55 and 90 rune crafting, respectively, for the small and large ones, requiring 30 and 100 thread, and you get the thread when you're crafting runes through the Abyss, and it scales with your rune crafting level, and will also be affected by the Demonic Skull in terms of how much that you get. So,
okay.
And, I think that this is the one they definitely needed to do the most to, because, we saw the whole debacle last year with the rune pouches.
Yeah.
So this was a good change.
Yeah, I think it makes, to me, it makes a lot of sense with just the way that, the rune crafting's done through the Abyss, and now you're going to get your pouches like that. I think it works real well.
Yeah. Ogre flasks, you create those using 10 robust glass, and these hold up to 6 doses of Ogre Spa Pool waters instead of 1. Of course, you'll need to have completed a first resort quest. And, this is something we really didn't know too much about. I never thought of these before, and it was mentioned in our producers chat this week that these are actually interesting because, you could effectively bottle up infinite run energy, for example, if you wanted to do that. So that was neat this week. Mm-hmm. Or a scentless one for hunting. I don't know much else of the effects from Uglog that really stood out to me. Those were always the 2 biggest ones, were for hunting and run energy.
Yeah, that's the only one I ever really knew about, was the run energy.
There was the Bandos one, but that kind of disappeared when we got the whole Shard of Zaros thing.
Yeah.
Needing to have that. Sulfur one improves prayer, restores and boosts prayer points 10% above the maximum. I don't know if we need that, but okay. There's also one that heals poison, cures poison, and applies poison immunity, the thermal one. That one might be interesting for combat.
Yeah, that one could be. Mm-hmm.
So, lots of good options with that one, too. Amulet of the Forsaken has been moved to the Barrows drop table now, and they're calling it super rare. Super rare.
Yeah, good luck getting that now, apparently.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough.
And, you know, in some ways, I think that people need more of a reason to go play the classic Barrows this day and age.
Yeah, but is that really the reason? Because, like, super rare means you ain't getting it. You're probably never going to see one.
Yeah. And, you know, what it does is it basically gives a small 10% boost to all the various effects and whatnot of the Barrows armors. And, you know, we talked about before, Barrows armors mid-70s. It would still be nice to have those set effects, but it doesn't really make sense to wear those armors unless you're doing mid-level Slayer tasks.
Well, the only time you're going to really be wearing those is if you are at those levels, you know?
Yeah.
And then if you are at those levels, that gives you a smaller window of doing that activity to get that necklace. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Next up, the Ancient Warriors equipment patch. When killing Revenants on a Slayer task, they will now have a chance to drop this patch. And unlike the other Ancient Warrior gear, this patch will not be dropped by the Chaos Elemental. You know, once again, this one also seemed mid-level too, so I'm not sure much that we can write home about here. I mean, upgrades equipment from 70. It basically upgrades the Statius's helmets and Vestus gear from 78 to 88.
I know, but why? What I didn't understand was like why it was removed from the Chaos Elemental. Is that too easy or something? Like what was the?
I think they just don't want people grinding the Chaos Elemental and instead focusing on Revenants where it's more dangerous.
Okay,
that would be my guess.
That's what I didn't understand. That's
my guess. Couldn't figure it out. Anyways, then we got the Bounty Emblem, which we talked about, and the Bounty Teleport is just gone. Then there is the Wilderness loot table, which you'll be able to access when killing any monsters in the wilderness or pickpocketing. And this, it's kind of like its own rare drop table, except you do have a chance to roll on this. And what you can get from this is a Wilderness Hilt, an Adrenaline Crystal, Preserved Meat, the Fremenic equipment patch, a Revenant drop enhancer, Bloodwood Seeds, or Brawling Gloves. And this applies to everything in the wilderness, so even for pickpocketing. And I know rogue pickpocketing up top is interesting too. So it's interesting to say the least on this. Kind of is that little cherry on the top to have people go out in the wilderness and kill.
Yeah, what is a Wilderness Hilt? I'm not familiar with that.
That's the one that I believe that's the one that upgrades dragon equipment. Let me just double check on that. Upgrades dragon equipment from 60 to 70.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'd never heard of that item.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Upgrades your dragon equipment from 60 to 70. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Indeed. All right. I think that's pretty much all we got for the wilderness side of this week's update. So unless there's anything else, I think we can leave this one and move on and call it successfully executed.
Yeah, I agree.
You gonna go do a wilderness task?
I think I am, but I think I'm gonna make just some Elder Rune
stuff.
There
you go.
And go do it. Yeah.
And though I don't know what you'd use for ranged, because we don't really have anything cheap for ranged at tier 80-ish, do we?
Well, the RCB.
Yeah, Royal Crossbow, but armor-wise.
Yeah. Oh, armor-wise. Gosh. I was thinking, Corels. I mean, you have some options at 70.
Yeah, and I mean, Barrows is cheap enough, right?
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, there's nothing at 80 that is like easy enough and cheap enough to.
And looking at the creatures that we have here, I think 70 would probably be good for most of them. You know?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
Abyssal Demons are going to be a melee thing that you can use your Elder Rune for. Gargoyles, no problem. Greater Demons, no problem. You'll want to use ranged for those. Ice Strike Worms, that one's going to be an issue because you do want to use fire on those.
Yeah.
Calgarian Demons, Elder Rune.
Oh, yeah.
Lava Strike Worms, I don't know. Water fiends, you're gonna Carls ranged, I guess. Dark beasts ranged again, and I think you could probably kill them with a royal crossbow and Carl's armor. I think that'd be good enough, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then we got green dragons, revenants, black dragons. Black dragons are kind of iffy, but there's ways around that. Black demons.
I mean, you can use whatever you want for them. It's supposed to be, I think, range is the thing.
Range is the one. And then blue dragons, fire giants, and hellhounds, all fairly easy tasks. So, I mean, tier 70 armor with maybe a tier 80 weapon is going to be good enough for these wilderness tasks.
Yeah, I think so.
And combine that with a plus 20% boost on XP, I think you got something really interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have enough for like an incentive. It's just, like I said, it just depends on if getting PK'd is going to ruin your day or not.
Yeah. And as I mentioned with this, none of these tasks, I think, in my view, except for maybe lava strike worms, I don't know, would appear on a block list.
Yeah, I mean, there's lower. See,
like,
I would probably
are any of the tasks on this
levels,
list going to appear on a block list for people?
I've blocked greater demons, I think, before, just because I don't want them coming up.
Okay.
I don't want to waste my points on them,
Right.
For this set of circumstances, no. I think it's fine. But if we're talking like these same task at like Curadel or something, then yeah, I would have several of them probably on a block list.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we can move on then. Next, of course, that came in this week was the transmogrification user interface, and that is one hell of a mouthful.
I'm glad it's you, not me.
So to access this, you pop open your emotes window, and then at the bottom you'll see bottom right, you'll see a little ring, and then in there you'll have the ability to select pretty much any transmogrification that you own, and you'll be able to transform into that wherever you want. So,
can we now get rid of our stuff that's in the bank?
Yeah, they disappeared.
I've still got like rings, and I've still got the package stuff.
The package was from this week's thing, but yeah. I'm fairly certain that all my transmogrification rings disappeared.
They did?
Yeah.
I still got my eggs and stuff too.
Eggs?
Yeah, like that turns you into a bunny and a lamb, and they're Easter.
Oh, maybe they didn't disappear. Maybe I just lost them in my bank. All right, I'll double check that. But safe to say, anything you've unlocked will appear in this, and if you want, you can just destroy whatever you have left in your bank if they didn't get destroyed. I thought they were, but I'll have to double check that.
Okay.
Alrighty. And next up, before we move on to the patch notes, they did add an inspect option for the grouping system so that you'll be able to inspect a member in your group before you head on into those elite dungeons to see what exactly they're wearing, what their backpack consists of, and what their beast of burden consists of. So you won't be able to inspect action bar, but you will be able to inspect those things that I mentioned.
I don't even know if I like that, but I don't do it enough to pass judgment, I suppose.
Yeah, and it could be seen as a form of elitism, I think. But on the other hand, talking
that's kind of what I'm feeling.
But on the other hand, in talking with David about it, he feels it'd be a good teaching method too. So two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah, well, and with David, like, he's going to tell you what you need and stuff. Like, I just feel like this is a way that people is going to look at each other and be like, "Oh, no, you can't go with us."
Yeah, you can't wear that equipment. So, all right, moving on to the patch notes. Then, road's getting a little bit more bumpy as we go. So enjoy the smooth path before it gets really bumpy after. So starting off this week, players can now mine the coal rocks and miscellanea for approval rating with a full inventory. The bug report interface will now remember text entered should you close it and then reopen it. That one's neat. and I think that's a good title, or a good change. The IFB title will now reliably reward once hitting a combined total of 100 kills across group and solo mode, as well as having the Ambi pet. This is for Elite Dungeon 3. The smithing level benefit for smelting extra Bane bars was missing from the smithing skill guide, and it has now been added. As shooting stars can now be mined at any level, their milestone entries on the mining skill guide have been removed. Kalia, the farmhand collector, will now correctly collect animals from the breeding pen if you were to leave the area with less than the max amount of animals in the pen. And then drilling down further on this patch note list, we take a bit of a break till we get to free-to-play players can no longer receive ceremonial sword plans while smithing.
Free-to-play?
Yeah, free-to-play can no longer receive ceremonial sword plans while smithing.
Yeah, I wish I didn't receive them while I was smithing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a pain.
It is. I've been trying to make the masterwork this week, and I got, a good number of those. And, I did the first two, and then I just dropped them.
Yeah, that's what I do, too.
Yeah. The following messages will now get filtered. You cannot attack that familiar in single-way combat. A divine charge container is 25, 50, 75% full. I've been wanting this one for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one is the biggest one here for me.
I would tend to agree with that, yeah.
Your backpack is full when mining or forging. Your backpack is full. You can store more ore in your ore box. Your crystal shield life points have been depleted. And the following messages will get shown once and then are filtered for 10 seconds. Stomp is currently invulnerable. Everyone's favorite dungeoneering boss. The Luminant Ice Fiend is encased in ice and cannot be harmed. Barricade blocks all damage. Now, this one's interesting, this next one. A +2 prayer bonus has been added to Masterwork gloves and boots.
Oh, nice.
I know.
Nice. Good. Well, we do need a little something with it,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And this isn't necessarily game breaking or destroying. It's just a nice little bit of icing, right? So.
Oh yeah, prayer's not gonna. That doesn't make or break it. It just helps a little bit on your train.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The inspect system for the grouping system has been added. We already talked about that one. Players can now opt to select their favorited fairy ring locations from the interface via keybinds 1 to 8.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. And what would you say is your biggest fairy ring hub that you use?
Probably. It'd be a tie probably between the Ancient Cavern. I go there a lot. And just to the Zenaries place because you go there a lot if you're doing safe cracking runs.
Oh, right.
So those two I use probably more than others.
I normally depart through Edgeville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fairy rings now have a new map icon. After discovering each one's transporter code, it can be viewed again as a tooltip on the minimap.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, they're slowly putting our interactive map out of business here with that. All right. Let's see. Luck rings will no longer have a chance to proc when they're not worn.
Huh?
I don't know how you would get that to happen, but there we go.
Okay.
They changed the World Select interface. Most of these changes are mobile-centric, such that the refresh button now works again. Activity and location have been separated. All worlds will now display their location rather than using the RuneScape symbol if they have an activity. Worlds without an activity will display a dash. Increase the overall size of the UI. Increase the height on the rows to be bigger on mobile. Increase the majority of the text size on mobile. Increase the spacing between the settings for easier selection on mobile. Widen the settings bar and panel. Remove some PC terminology. The toggle world hop confirmation will be toggled on by default. The world hop confirmation toggle is now independent to each platform, so toggling it off on one doesn't affect the other. extended the select region on the filters in the header across the header bar across the text to the toggle world hop confirmation checkbox so they're easier to select, and added tooltips over players' names in both the friends chat and clan chat to display information about which world they're on. And we already had those tooltips on the friends chat, so this is basically the same thing.
I see.
I actually like the way the new world hop interface looks and the world selection UI. I think it's good.
Yeah,
even on PC.
Yeah, and I use that often sometimes, so I'm glad made a little bit better.
Alrighty. Tuska's Wrath will now deal extra damage on Nihils, Muspas, and Glaciers while they're a Slayer task. And
cool.
A short wall shortcut has been added on the islands that were once turtles.
Okay.
And recall, that's the island that was really difficult to get around to, so that's why it was good to have that.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember it now. Yep.
Yeah. But that's it for the patch notes. I don't believe there's anything else, so we can move on.
I think it's time to start going off-road.
Yeah, it is.
Are we there yet?
Off-roading with RSBANDBUpdate.
It's going to get a little rough.
So I wasn't able to find this post on the forums, but there was a Reddit posting on this. So this is one of the few times we're actually going to go along with that here. So this is a post by Mod Shawnee with the title, and this is the title that, as we mentioned, effectively throws the bumps into the road of this week. One of the first. Hotfix, Gemrocks, and Uncut Onyx updates. Hello, everyone. Today we released a hotfix to remove the ability to mine uncut onyxes from Gemrocks. The reason for this is that the amount of onyxes in-game has increased by almost double since the mining and smithing rework, and that it was an unsustainable amount of onyxes being produced from mining. The amount of onyxes being mined from Gemrocks meant that over 10,000% more onyxes were entering the game from mining than before the update. This has completely saturated the game with uncut onyxes and meant that the gem has hit its ALC price. This hotfix allows us to try and salvage the uncut onyx market. It is a very valuable commodity in the RuneScape economy and had a healthy market prior to this problem. It will take time to recover, but we hope that this hotfix today will allow it to start recovering. We realize that this may be seen as a nerf to profitability of skillers and want to reassure that this simply isn't the case. We want skilling to be profitable and will continue to release content in the future that helps promote this. Thanks, the RuneScape team. Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. All right, 30-second hot take. What do you got?
I'm glad okay, let's look at the positives. He worded it very well. I'm glad he put the analytics in there because that helped make the case for me. I don't mind that they took it out. But I think we'll have to talk about some of the reasoning and some of the bigger implications of that later on. Yeah.
As it is, a 10,000% increase effectively means 100 times more onyxes than there were before in game. And we know that onyxes, from the alchemical side, were upwards of 24, 25 mil when the alchemical onyx jewelry came out at the tail end of last year. Now, with that being said, I remember hearing at and around RuneFest that there were murmurs that prices of fortunate components and whatnot will go up with the alchemical onyx jewelry rework that came in. But as we all know, if the prices of onyx hit the floor, that really can't happen now, can it? Because rather than hinging the price of the jewelry on this stone, you're hinging it on now the entire treasure trail economy, which, if you think about it, doesn't really make that much sense, right? Making a Luck of the Dwarves or Grace of the Elves or Ingenuity of Humans is based on the price of treasure trails, treasure trail items rather than a crafting item, and it's made with the crafting skill, something is horribly wrong. And for everybody out there who feels that Onyxes should stay as a part of this drop table, look at it from that perspective, that frame. In that, does it make sense to have something made with crafting and invention have its price be determined by treasure trail items? In what world would that be acceptable? And that is my internal rationalization for this action being taken, if that makes sense. And I think when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the right decision was made. And, you know, it is unfortunate because those of us who were mining that and those of us who were using things like the Dwarven Ram Hammers there, my record after nerf, the first nerf, in the week it came out, was that, you know, I got 4 Onyxes in 1 hour, and that was pretty nice. But just seeing how much could come in from that, I had a gut feeling that it wasn't going to be sustainable. And I think I might have told that to one of you guys. I don't know if I did. Did I?
I don't remember you mentioning that. Yeah, I don't remember that. And like I said, I don't know if I would have believed it if he didn't have the numbers with him like that. That really sold it to me. I was like, oh, okay. Because we talk, you know, we talk on the show a lot about, you know, Jagex has the analytics that we don't know about, and that made a big difference. In my opinion.
And you know, this post was 51% upvoted. Currently still only net 3 positive from that. So, you know, there were other ideas of bringing that in, and it was effectively ruled out that bringing in Onyxes or anything else to that effect would still harm the market, because, you know, people want something from gem mining now. You know, as much as it pains me to say this, and, you know, Onyxes should never have been a part of that table.
You know, I don't think it's all that big of a deal. Gem mining was crap before. It's crap now. What's the big deal? I mean, for you know, a little bit,
it's not even crap, though. I'm actually, let me play devil's advocate here with this by making 2 points.
All right.
In chatting with David this week, because he's been doing, of course, a lot of Elite Dungeon 3 and whatnot, Onyx Dust. He said maybe we also need to get rid of Onyx Dust. Maybe that would help the price of Onyx. You know, he's not entirely against getting rid of Onyx Dust from the Elite Dungeons either, because those Onyx Dusts are also contributing to this problem. So that's point number 1. But point number 2 is, what is the general sentiment this week with gem mining?
That it's no good anymore.
Okay, and what does that mean?
That means there's no Onyx in it anymore. There's no money, no real money.
Right, and people aren't going to be mining as much because of that at the gems, correct?
You would think, yeah.
But, you know what the but is?
No.
Dragonstones are still very good for crafting XP, and even making Dragonstone jewelry from this. And you can get still a very healthy amount of Dragonstones from these gem rocks.
Oh, well, I guess that's good.
And I mean,
yeah, they're not worth what they used to be, but it's still good.
I mean, even with that, when I was doing it, it's still 700, 800k GP an hour with this.
I mean, that's not...
Like, it's not good.
Nothing.
But it's... Like, it's not 50k, but it's something. And
it's probably fair for AFK. You know what I mean?
Like, AFK. Bingo. Yeah. Bingo. It's fair for AFK. But my point with this also is that with less people gem mining, there's also going to be less Dragonstones coming into the game. And Dragonstones could potentially go up.
Yeah, and Dragonstones is one of those things, too, though, that they're very, very tied to the DXP spikes and drops.
Yeah.
Because they're so used on that weekend, you know. The other good thing about the Dragonstones, though, is with them being on the gem rocks, it might actually help. Like if you're going after like XP, gemstone dragons are still great at XP, and if you're getting your dragon stones for free, there's a use for them.
Exactly, right? And you know, I don't know what people listening to this are going to think, but I think in my mind, if the argument had just been made how I made the argument, that there's going to be less people mining these gem rocks because of that, and the price of your dragon stones are going to go up, both from mining here and from the gemstone dragons, I think we would have seen a different reaction to this news post.
Yeah, probably. But honestly, I don't think they did that bad, just because.
Well, of course they didn't do that bad. But it's Reddit, right? And
it's Reddit. And
I tried to find a spot on the forums for this, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, it is Reddit. It's just that I felt Shawnee had the numbers behind him, and there's no way to argue with it. Like, yeah, it sucks, but I thought what we found out that we'll be covering here in a little bit was much more troubling.
Oh, there's a forum post than this. There's a forum post. It is actually a direct copy paste of that. So
now, but that being said, I didn't realize they left in Onyx Dust because they're perfectly cool with that. I think if you take away from skillers, you take away from the PVM side.
Onyx Dust still can come from the elite dungeons.
Yeah, I think both of those should go. Yeah. That's only fair.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And, the first post on the forum thread for this is, what a load of crap. Items fall all the time. Stop screwing with the markets to keep a small community happy.
What community is that? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. And you're not going to have a community if the price is at elk value.
But what community was happy about it anyway? About them nerfing this or getting rid of it?
The PVM community was happy because the price of Onyx will go up, apparently.
But they don't bring in Onyx all that much.
No, they don't.
Except through the dust.
No.
Onyx comes in through skilling mostly.
Yeah.
Or Slayer, I guess. Calgarians still drop them.
I think on average this is a net positive.
Yeah, I do too.
For the economy.
Like I said, what I fear with this is its implications for skilling on a larger scale.
Okay.
That's something that I covered in the live stream a little bit, and I think that's, to me, that's more troubling than this needed to be done. I can't see an argument to why it didn't need to be done. It had to be done. That's correct. You can't have it at ALC value.
Yeah.
That's not what that item should be at.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, are you ready to move on then to the CompCape design?
Now it's time to go mud bogging. Let's get down in it.
All right. So this week published was the design document for the CompCape rework, and as with most things that end up happening, it is fairly controversial with this, and so I have largely abstained from this debate on the CompCape from the very time it was first talked about to now, to the point where it doesn't really even bother me that much what happens. So that's the perspective I'm going to be providing on this. So let's go through this. Let's go through this design document here with what we got. So starting off with this is they want to move around some of the achievement categories. In particular, they want to add a lore category and remove the completionist category. So it would look like skills, combat, lore, exploration, minigames, and miscellaneous. And then everything that was in completionist would move into its more appropriate areas, mostly lore and miscellaneous in all likelihood. And the reason for this is that they want to rethink how completionism is defined, which will be happening later in the document. And the second thing they want to do is assign most or all achievements to a tier, either 1, 2, or 3, and the tier would reflect how difficult and or time-consuming it is to get, with 3 being the hardest. Now, the example they give with this is that within each achievement category, you'd then have a meta-achievement for each tier. And for example, they say this is not final. Tier 1 lore could require all quests to be completed and replace the quest cape. Tier 2 lore could require all mini-quests and post-quest achievements plus Tier 1 lore, while Tier 3 lore could require the rest of the lore category achievements and all the lore books plus Tier 2 lore. And this set off alarm bells in Clan Quest and throughout the rest of the community, so much so that Mod Jack actually issued a tweet on this saying, "We have discussed the Master Quest Point Cape, max problem, and here's what we've decided. Tier 1 skilling is the max cape. Tier 1 lore is the quest cape. The Master Quest cape will probably be the Tier 3 lore cape, but that's not absolutely final as we need to look at the exact requirements." So, crisis averted on that front, I think.
Yeah, people still didn't like it in the stream very much. They were still saying
the problem with that,
the MCQ.
Exactly, and the problem with that here is that they're calling it Tier 1 lore, Tier 2 lore, Tier 3 lore. If they would have called Tier 1 lore, if they would have said Quest Point Cape in brackets Tier 1, that would have been fine. Master Quest Cape Tier 3 in brackets, that would have been fine. And, you know, a lot of what this is referring to is, in effect, design. And in design, when you're designing something like this, you make it as general as you can. And that's why we see Tier 1 lore, Tier 2 lore, and Tier 3 lore. Because let's be honest, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 lore is a stupid name to put into game as a cape, right?
Yeah.
You want it to be the Quest Point Cape because it's about quests, and that's the lineage behind it. So
yeah.
So this was a silly idea and probably should have been just called as was mentioned in that tweet from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I think we're going to run into that more and more as it becomes your cape affected. Then things are going to change.
Okay.
Opinions are going to change at once. You know, when it doesn't affect what's on your back, not such a big deal. But when it does, it becomes a little bit bigger a deal. That's why Clan Quest.
We'll see about that for me. We'll see about that for me.
It might not affect you. Well, then again, what's most important to you? Is it your max cape or is it going to be your quest cape?
Neither.
You know, well, maybe you're just not into. I don't know. Shane's a very humble person. Look at him. He's so humble. He's RuneScape humble.
I had to be forced to buy the max cape.
Well, you should have been forced to buy the max cape. You earned it.
With 3 tiers and 6 categories, that would give, you ready for this, 18 meta achievements.
That doesn't sound like it's any more than what we have,
No, it's
right?
not. But the very fact you could potentially have capes for each of these is downright concerning.
But they're not doing that.
Okay. Well, let's read on that. The lore, combat, and skilling categories would have a cape associated with each meta achievement. So they would. So Tier 1 lore.
But they changed that when they came to the live stream. They said it was too expensive. They couldn't do it with capes. That there would be possibly 9, so it would be every 2.
All right.
Like within the same thing.
All right, we'll skip that paragraph then. Finally, we'd ensure we write and publish clear guidelines for what achievements belong in each category and tier so that developers and players know what to expect from new content. New content will almost always bring new achievements, which will add additional requirements to their meta achievements. Doing this addresses problem 2 of inconsistent comp cape requirements. Now, for non-stat cape bonuses, currently the comp cape inherits several rewards from other pieces of content, such as Ava's Accumulator and the Spirit Cape, and this ties hugely into problem 1. Too many benefits are tied to the comp cape, making it the only cape anyone wears. So our plan is to attach all these benefits to the player, rather than tied to the specific cape. I think that's a good idea, and that's probably how this should have been done from the beginning.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that.
So effectively, after you complete Animal Magnetism, you'll have that ability on your player. And you can combine effects without needing the comp cape to be a container for all of them.
Do you think that could be done without having to do a cape rework? Just take that stuff off of the cape and put it on the player?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That might be something to keep in mind then.
Yes. Because if they can do it, they can just, what they would effectively do is they'd just, decouple everything from the cape, and then you'd just be left with a cosmetic cape in the end, or just make a new cape object and have that be the cape, right?
Okay.
So, now these rewards, they say, fall into two categories: actives like the max scaled teleport, and passives like Ava's accumulator. For actives, they say, let's say you have the max scaled and skeletal horror teleports unlocked, but you don't have the comp cape. You'll have those right-click options on any cape you wear instead of just the comp cape.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. I don't know if they need to do that. Do they?
I mean, it gets to the sense of, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, that that's just a reshuffling, a redistribution without losing things that you already have. So in that regard, I think it's fine. It's probably necessary.
Okay. I'm just worried about the huge options list that you would potentially have. It would have to be limited.
Yeah, that's always an issue. It's just, is that the bigger problem, or would the perception of things being taken away be the bigger problem?
My problem with the comp cape, and I illustrated this when the poll came out, is that it's too high of a mountain to climb to effectively have the best cape in the game. I would very much rather have the best cape in the game come into game via a combat activity like used to with the fight with the fight capes, right? With the fire cape.
Yeah. There are things that I like and things that I don't with this proposal. Some of the and as for what you're saying, I think that's I would like. I do agree with that. Just like I think that the best skilling perks should come from skilling somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the best utility things in game should be rewarded from quests.
Yes. No, I totally agree. The problem I'm having right now is I just don't know if the cost is outweighing the good. I don't know. Look, we are not a community that likes change, and especially change when no one is really yelling and howling about a problem. It's almost kind of a solution in search of a problem. Now, don't get me wrong. Their proposals, I think they're persuasive. I think they make good arguments.
Oh, yeah. This is a good design.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying this is the design that should go forward necessarily, but I'm saying design-wise, as far as game design and project design go, this is good.
Yeah. I don't know if it's worth... Do they want to spend their political capital on this? They've built up a lot, and they've done very well. There may be another update down the road that would be much more beneficial, that the players actually do want. Like if they put whatever it's going to take for the development time for this, if that actually went to the placeholders and bring back the half of a bank rework, it would be so much better to spend that political capital and those resources on that than this, because no one's going to quit this game because they didn't do this change. But if you take people, Shane, I'm telling you, you could lose your trimmed comp.
I don't have trimmed comp.
Or you're trimmed, yes. That's in the tier 3, I think it was going to be, or a tier 2.
So you're saying trimmed comp might not be a thing anymore?
Right. Max isn't going to be a thing anymore. Like
but we just had the tweet that said tier 1 skilling will be the max cape.
Yeah, tier 1 skilling
is the max cape.
Right, but I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, that's close to home with me because that's the one that I have. But still, even without that, I just don't know if this is a bridge too far right now. If it's worth it, like, is this what we want to spend the capital on? Like, is this where the risk that we want? Because there's just so many things that could go wrong with this.
Right.
And when you look at the polling, when they talked about the polling, most people were fine. They were fine with the way things were, and if anything, all they wanted was maybe a little bit of a grace period. And if you play devil's advocate, completionist means you completed the game. So it kind of should have high stats. Now, I think you could decouple those, the Ava stuff and all that. Yeah. I think that would be much better on the player. That makes more sense. But as for the completionist cape itself being a best in slot cape, I think David made a good point about that when he was on and we were talking about this. What was
that exactly? That one?
Well, he had just said that he didn't mind doing it because it's he should have to. If he wants the best, he should have to. And and as much as I hate the thought of I would have to do all of those bosses for a comp, in theory, I kind of should have to.
Right. But what is also the point of tying the other achievements into having a comp cape if you're just after the best in slot combat cape? What is the point of tying all those achievements in? And that's why I think the decoupled option, like if I was doing this, what I would say is take the decoupling of what we said with the actives and the passives, but also let's just have these things be cosmetic options that you can unlock when you reach these tiers of achievement. And then, let's say you're going out and you're going to do the newest combat adventure that comes in, and that's going to unlock the best in slot combat option cape-wise in the game, then that's the best in slot combat cape. Why should it all have to be boiled down to comp? Why can't the best in slot cape come from a combat activity?
Well, I mean, part of me agrees with that, but the thing is, I didn't realize how much comp touched, and it's not just
everything.
Comp. It touches everything. I mean, and that's what I'm.
But they're also handicapping themselves, because if they come out with like the next fire caves or the next rush of blood or something along the lines of that, the next effective combat climber activity in game, what do they give for rewards for that? Wouldn't it be neat to have, the hardest combat experience in game outside of a PVM boss like Telos reward something that, maybe, I don't know, only 5 to 10% of the players can actually complete and get and be the best in slot combat cape? That's the way I would prefer them to go.
Yeah,
because that is just so much more traditional, dare I say it, old school RuneScape. Not old school RuneScape the game, but how things used to be done.
This is just one of those that I'm so on the fence, and I can see both sides so much that I waver a lot, and that the mere fact that you can waver on this makes me go, maybe we're not ready for this. Maybe this isn't the time.
Well, let's talk about the stats then that were proposed in the doc. Stats are useful for combat, and we feel it incorrect to force you to do things like farming or the mage training arena in order to get the stat benefit from the comp cape. This ties into problem 1, too many benefits tied to the comp cape, and I agree with that. So the raw stats themselves, we want to move stats away from the existing capes of accomplishment and take a fresh look at how this should work. Our pitch is that if you have any of the Tier 1 meta achievements, underlined any, you get a passive plus 11 armor and plus 3 prayer bonus and plus 5 to all styles at a time. This doesn't use up your cape slot and would stack with any cape that you're currently wearing. For example, the Takar Kalhet cape gives plus 44 armor, 2 prayer, and 31 strength, but with one of the Tier 1 achievements completed, it would become 55 armor, 5 prayer, 36 strength, plus 5 ranged, and plus 5 magicked. This also helps solve problem 1 and allows us to make cape drops matter again. I'm 100% behind how this doc is advocating stats be handled. I'm 100% behind that.
Really, I mean, it's really interesting. What happens to, I don't know, are they redesigning this? Are we going to be able to do what we do with our Tier 1? I mean, essentially, since Tier 1 is max cape, are we going to be able to do what we do with our max cape, with our collar palettes and our stuff like that?
And see, that's the question. You know, if this is just a cosmetic that they're going to be making into game, there's no reason why that wouldn't be feasible, though it doesn't say what the end of that would be here.
Okay. Well, because, I mean, I know it's trivial for you, but it's a concern. Like, it's kind of a big deal for a lot of us to be able to, you know, Fashionscape's a thing, man. You got to look good.
But there's still going to be a Tier 1 skilling cape.
Yeah, but it might be ugly and you might not be able to customize it.
But we also have that tweet where Mod Jack says the Tier 1 skilling is the max cape.
Well, that's what I don't understand. So it is... So he's saying it is the max cape that we have right now. It's not that it would be equivalent to the max cape.
Well, he underlines is.
Okay. But if we're putting stats on capes, then aren't we doing this very thing that we're trying to stop?
No. This would be a passive when you unlock Tier 1. When you unlock the Tier 1...
No, I know that. But like with their example, they used the Takar cape.
Yeah,
which
right.
has...
But that's a special cape that comes from combat, and it's allowed to have those kind of stats. Whereas
I get you. So we could...
So you would have your Takar Kalhet, which gives you those stats... or something in the future that comes from the new hypothetical undesigned combat thing I just talked about. And then you would get this added extra bonus from any of the Tier 1 meta achievements.
Okay.
So
that makes more sense. Okay.
You know, effectively the combat bonuses you get from the max cape right now, you could get from Tier 1 combat, Tier 1 skilling, Tier 1 lore, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And if this is as anticipated, where he says it is the max cape, I think we can assume that is visual in that regard.
Well, that would be good.
That's the assumption I am running under.
But see how like confusing this is. Like I read the blog post. I watched the streams. I co-host a show with you. Like I'm in the news, and it confused.
Yeah, and you know I'm about to get confused right now, too, with this next one, the new comp cape. We plan to recategorize achievements, sort them into tiers, and move benefits from capes onto the player. Okay, we talked about that, and we want to add 3 new capes, which we call Tier 1 comp, Tier 2 comp, and Tier 3 comp. You'll need to earn the meta achievements of that tier in all 6 achievement categories. So if you have all 6 Tier 1 meta achievements, you'll qualify for comp, Tier 2 comp for all Tier 2s, and Tier 3 for all Tier 3s, so on and so forth. And this is this really obscure graphic that we got here right now.
So there will be 3 levels of
each meta achievement, resulting in 3 comp capes. And going back to what was said, Tier 1 skilling is the max cape.
So that's like the first comp cape now.
So that's So that's one phase of it, and it would give potentially a little chunk there. Then we get into grace periods. They talked about the 3-month grace period they had with Menaphos and Slayer, and they can fix problem 2 of inconsistent and incomplete requirements by just adding more requirements. Of course, this will create a lot of them, which means a lot more work to keep your cape, and we want you to have longer periods of actually wearing your achievement capes rather to be in a perpetual state of trying to get them back. Mm-hmm. And we want you to enjoy weekly updates rather than having to feel like you have to complete them ASAP.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that, and that is what people seem to really want more than anything else.
That is the most compelling argument to amnesty regarding RuneScape capes that I've ever heard.
Yeah, because it's true. Like, I don't know. Do you know people that are comp, right, Shane?
Yeah.
Like, they are Monday reset, boom, they're on it. They're doing whatever they have to do to get that back, and it doesn't.
At the same time, part of me says, hey, you want to pursue this lifestyle? Too bad.
Yeah, no, I get that, but it's I think it's the other part of it that is compelling to me of, are they enjoying the content, and are we being hamstringed on what content we get because of people having to get their capes back? And if that's playing a factor in any of it, then give them amnesty, whatever, because I don't want that affecting the content that I play.
Yeah, and the example they designed is a 6-month lockdown where if it was always the first update of March and the first update of September, any updates released between the first update of March and the first week of September would become a requirement on September's lockdown week.
Okay.
So you would only lose your cape if you didn't catch up with that.
Okay.
And, 6 months is just an arbitrary number. They're not sure how long it should be. But freezing.
My personal opinion, I think 3 was fine. But
Yeah, Menaphos.
Yeah.
Freezing existing comp and trimmed comp capes. They've talked about making the improvements, but what about existing comp and trim capes? They don't want to abandon them or devalue the accomplishments of the players that have them. So their current plan would be to effectively freeze them, and the current comp and trimmed cape would become legacy versions of themselves and renamed appropriately. These would keep all their existing requirements, would still be obtainable, and could still be worn post-rework, would never have any of their requirements changed or added to or removed, wouldn't have stats or non-stat benefits, but you still access them thanks to the changes proposed earlier in this document. So they wouldn't have stats, but they'd just be effectively cosmetic.
Yeah, that'd be purely cosmetic. Yeah.
I don't think they need to do this. I think just make the comp cape look as it is now. Why have the legacy items? Just carry on over the designs. People like them.
Yeah, I think that I agree.
That's the simplest way of doing that.
I agree with that completely. It's what we've come to know. It's what we love.
Yeah.
I think this is touchy. I think this is a way touchier issue than people realize right now.
Controversial requirements. Problem with 3 is that there's effectively 2 controversial requirements for comp: Reaper and Castle Wars. The Reaper requirements will be spread out amongst tiers of the combat cape, and we haven't assigned specific bosses to tiers yet, but we'll make sure this is published well in advance, so there shouldn't be any surprises. The Castle Wars requirement will either be found on a high-tier minigame cape or will only exist on the comp legacy cape, trimmed comp legacy cape.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm not going to say that ain't beautiful. That's beautiful. People that have comp, though, are probably not going to like it. But wait, Castle Wars, that's trim, isn't it? I thought that was trim.
Castle Wars is trim.
See, this is where things are getting really murky. You're mixing the trim requirements and the combat stuff, and I'm telling you, Shane, it's murky. I don't know. I think they could go do the skinny repeal, right? Like, just redistribute the little benefits and give some amnesty. I think that's really all that you would need. Because now you're putting trimmed requirements are going to be on a tier 2 cape, completionist cape, right? Like, that's, I just don't know.
You know, here's my, you know, after reading this, I think there's two potential ways you can go forward with this. Number one is that do the poll as was initially done, but I don't think that publishing this design document did any good this week at this stage, because it's just creating more uncertainty and doubt regarding this project.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There would have been a better.
I see nothing specifically wrong with this design, but it has been poisoned. There's nothing inherently wrong with the design, but I think the discussion the community has had has poisoned it. That this design cannot go forward.
Well, but what discussion? Like, I haven't heard discussion from the community really.
Well, live stream related and whatnot, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there were people, you know, talking about like don't touch my Master Quest cape and stuff like that. But none of my criticism is coming from that.
Oh no, regard. Definitely, we don't do that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about the design. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad design.
Like, if you plop this down in front of the community and it looked the same and in general took the same amount of time to get for both of them, plus or minus a few weeks, I think this would have been okay to just put into game without consulting the community.
Oh, Shane, I don't know about that one. This is going to ruffle feathers.
Trust me on that, because
the feathers that are ruffled with this change.
We had the mining and smithing rework. Like you said, goodwill, and is this a place that wants to be spent? And if Jagex wants to spend it on that, they should just go head on in with this design.
But this is image and identity, Shane. Like, for whatever reason, right or wrong, your cape of achievement is wrapped up into your game identity.
Yeah.
It's more than just an update.
When we first started talking about this with the poll, I said this is a problem. And looking back, I wouldn't have added capes of accomplishment at all to the game.
Well, you know, I mean, you may have been right there, but I mean, it's where we're at, and to me, this reminds me a hell of a lot of the Prestige situation. Like, it really does, though. Like, it wasn't a bad
they're
design.
Good ideas. It's just knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah.
You know, alternatively, I think one way to go forward on this is to do the decoupling, as you mentioned, and I think what you can do is just, I'm going to say, decouple it, but add some new capes along based on the achievements category. Do that side of it. Do the achievement splitting up. And, you know, after you've completed certain sets of the achievements, just unlock a cosmetic comp cape. Add another tier to it between that and trimmed if you need to, and then finally have trimmed on the end. And then just unlock the current capes that we have as cosmetic.
I mean, that could work. I mean, that I think is probably a better solution. But what about this solution, right? You know how the PVM community is. It doesn't matter if it's just a +1 stat that makes it one cape better than the other one. It's, you know, if one's a 45 and the other's a 44, they're still going to want the 45 no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, so why not just decouple it?
Yep.
Decouple it, add the grace period, and instead of changing the whole comp cape, why not just do a combat cape that is the best in slot, even if it's just by 1? It would still be best in slot. And then you're solving the problem of the PVMers having to do all their comp stuff. Right. They wouldn't have to.
And I think that does solve a problem, but I also think it's hamstringing development going forward if they want to put something in like an updated version of Rush of Blood or a Dominion Tower kind of thing where they want to award a best-in-slot cape. I think best-in-slot items should come from gameplay, not achievements like this.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you would have to do, like, this would be a combat cape.
But I'm also saying that if you make this the best in slot today, you're saying everything I'm going to add a year, 2 years down the road has to be worse than this cape. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about this, is that I don't think that has been dealt with here.
I don't know. Can that be dealt with?
I mean, in this current design, it can be dealt with because you unlock the passives as you unlock more capes, right? When you complete the tier 1 meta achievement. So, and partially that's why I think this design is the design. There's a couple of wording issues here and there, but the reactions that have been made to it, just like you said with the prestige system, I think have prevented anything meaningful in this iteration of design from going forward, so much so that we're probably going to see a recalibration like we saw with mining and smithing.
Well, and that, that might be the best thing, but you got to think too, man, just, devil's advocate here, to be on the community's like behalf, we're struggling a little bit with this too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, it's not a simple design.
I mean, and so if we're struggling, I mean, people that don't follow this as closely as we do, they're going to be struggling too.
Right. And I'm seeing a lot of jargon in here that is design based, like tier 1, meta, associations, benefits, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, this is a raw design, and credit for posting this, of course. But I think that when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the design is good, like I said, but it just needs to be presented a little bit differently. And where have we said that before? Prestige, mining and smithing iteration 1.
Yeah.
So I'm content to move on to the live stream now. I don't really have much to mention there, except for the polling results, which I'll run through quickly. So poll question 1 was, capes have best in slot stats and utility, and we want to make them less mandatory. 22% of compers said that they should be cosmetic only, while 32% of non-compers said cosmetic only. Best in slot but easier was 29% compers and 41% non-compers voted that one. And then don't change anything about the benefits. You ready for this? 49% of completionist cape owners said that, and 27% of non-comp cape owners. 49% don't want any of the benefits of comp changed.
Well, and add the other 20%, and now you're talking an overwhelming majority don't want this to be touched, whether they have the cape or not. And that's why I'm saying this is not going to be an easy thing. That's why I'm afraid.
Maybe
is
maybe
it
the
worth
decoupling is the best way to go with some extra cosmetics thrown in.
That's where I'm at with it. Yeah.
Should requirements be added? 26% of compers say yes immediately, while 28% of compers say yes immediately. Yes over time, 41% compers, 45% non-compers, so a majority of the requirements should be added. 1/3 of completionist cape owners say no new requirements added, and 27% of non-compers say no requirements added to what we have now. Aiming for a consistent definition of what the comp cape is. Should requirements be removed that no longer make sense? 65% of compers say yes, 84% of non-compers, so a super majority in that case, and 35% of non-compers, or 35% of compers say no, and 16% of non-compers say no on that one. So requirements that no longer make sense should be removed as well. Comp makes players grind, and effectively hunt down their capes. Should they add either a XComp cape, a grace period, or neither? 21% said the XComp cape who have the comp cape right now. 59% said a grace period, and 21% said none. Now for the non-compers, 30% said add an X-trim cape. 51% of those said to add a grace period, and 18% said no. I was in the no category for that one, obviously.
Right.
Should forced group content or PVM be on the cape? Yes, says 40% of compers. No, but separate trim or cape, 34% of compers. And no should be required for all capes, 26% of compers. Well, non-compers say 26% yes only, 50% no, but on a separate trim or cape, and no should be required for all capes, 25% non-compers. So you see a pretty clear split there. And what I see in these questions is things that were asked that the questions that were asked weren't actually the questions that they were aiming for with that. And I can see the answers to these questions that we just went over in this design document. So in a way, the design document is exactly what the players asked for with their poll.
Yeah. See, and I would have answered that probably a lot different because it's just a personal preference, but I don't think anything you do should ever be tied. Like, I don't think achieving something should ever be tied to someone else's game. You know, I was the guy that I hated group projects for the same reason in school, man. I don't know. But that's really not just about the cape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to rehash what we've talked about with regards to the cape design. Is there anything else in the live stream that jumped out at you in particular?
Yeah, there was one thing.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of switching gears a little bit, but talking about the skilling again. So they repeatedly said that it's perfectly fine for skillers to make $1 million an hour, right? Like that's not the problem. That's not why they took Onyx out. But they also said that they don't want it to ruin whatever the market is. So
like the Onyx market.
The Elder Rune market.
Right.
Is another example of that. And they're talking about it, being AFK. And it's bringing prices down to a point to where you're at the out price, it runs the market. So if that is the case, then I don't see a lot of room for skillers to make money in the future if that is going to kind of be the standard, unless they come up with active gameplay methods that are GP related. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And
otherwise, otherwise we're right back where we started with combat being king, and it's the only way you make money. And that worries me in the long term.
And, we already just look at what we talked about on the bit in regards to rune crafting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, in its own is a high intensity method of skilling, but it makes money with mud runes, among other things. 3 mil an hour for natures, but mud runes probably 6, 7, give or take, depending on the day of the week. I think that I'm going to sound like a combat apologist here, but based on what some of the things we've seen this week and some of the things that David's going to be talking about next week in his Informer article, I think we're in a situation where skilling is going to make money in the future, and it does make money now, but the synergies that exist in game need to be protected. And the synergy that I always point to that works best and still works best is divination charge hunting, I think.
Yeah.
Because that's a nice circle that ties in skilling and combat, and it just feeds each other, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, if I don't know about you, but I consider divination charge hunting practically AFK.
Yeah. I mean, kind of.
Kind of. Like it's not high intensity like rune crafting, but it's still decent.
No, it's not high intensity, but it's not AFK either.
And that's because those charges are always being bought up either to run machines or to run high tier weaponry. So there needs to be synergies in place if we want skilling to make money. And we saw a bit of that last year with the deep sea fishing in particular, with sailfish and the jellyfish. So I don't know if they're used that much because brews are still pretty good on that front. But we need to be looking at these kind of synergies that can be added into games. So, you know, as much of a concern that some people might think it is, I'm not overly concerned about it, also because of what we talked about on the last monthly bit. So,
yeah, I mean, and I get that. You know, I think that's definitely a fair point. It's just, I also think that they mentioned this, and it's something that we need to at least acknowledge. It's a thing that happens when you're running 2, 3, 4 accounts, and that it's much easier now to do with mobile. And you're AFKing on these accounts. We're doing it to ourselves, and there's no way to really stop it. Like, I mean, even I run 2 accounts. Now, I don't do it for money. I do it to provide resources for one and kind of share in between and play quests that I like, that I really like, that I want to play again, and, you know, just stuff like that. But a lot of people do it because they, you know, that's how you make money now. Is you can, you know, have a couple accounts over there mining, and you might be doing.
Hence the perhaps Elder Rune market being in the toilet.
It is, and they even mentioned, they said, you know, their concern was they were afraid that people wouldn't play it, not that people would play it too much. You know, like, so this caught them off guard, really, and I don't hold that against them. Like, oh, you made it too good. Oh, how dare you?
Yeah,
you know, like, you know, so I don't begrudge them on that front. Yeah. I think we're kind of in a cycle where we're either going to all have to stop doing it or accept where it's at.
All right.
But, yeah.
Anything else from the live stream?
No, that was the big. Those were the big ones.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, do we need anything else after those?
No, I think it's time to take a break, talk some questions. But before we do that, I'll just take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters this week for the podcast. I would very like to express our gratitude very much to Ben W., Brock H., Diana, Kyle, and Zez. Thank you, all of you, for your wonderful support of RSBANDB Update. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing without you guys, so thank you very much. Thank you. And if you guys want to find more about this, head on over to patreon.com/RSBANDB. We're currently doing our monthly bit bonus show, and what we're doing with that. Last month we talked about money making and skilling. We're actually going to be putting up very soon, by the time you guys are listening this, to all Patreon supporters. You guys are going to choose what our next monthly bit is. So if you want to be involved in that, all you need to do is subscribe to us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You'll be able to choose what the next monthly bit is, as well as gain access to the back catalog of monthly bits. as well. But this month we're also doing Inside RSBANB Update, which is going to be interviews with the host and production team. And Tanis is up this month, so you'll learn a bit about him and his RuneScape career and just some fun little tidbits here and there. And if we reach $50 a month, we'll be doing the RSBANB Update Roundtable on the first Saturday of each and every month, where we'll talk about anything and everything RuneScape related in our Discord, and Patreon supporters are invited to attend and join this discussion. And finally, should we reach $99 a month, we'll be doing Movie Night with Shane and Tanis. Every month we'll run through a new movie, and some Star Trek could be included in this. This will be exclusive to Patreon supporters and special guests of the podcast. So as I mentioned, you can find all this and more at patreon.com/RSBNB for as little as $1 a month. You can upgrade to $3 a month if you want a special VIP rank on Discord, or a special mention on the podcast at the start of the month, or access to high-quality stereo AAC versions of the show. And for $5 a month, you'll get a shout-out on the podcast each and every week and gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use to produce the clip show every December. So that's a fun one indeed.
Very much.
Thank you once again, everyone.
Thanks a lot. And, man, wouldn't it be cool to get to the movie night? Because I need Shane to host movie night, because I have never seen a Star Trek movie. And I need him to pick out what I need to watch first, and I will be his guide to the Force, but I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. Lord. What Star Trek movie do I begin with? Do I begin with I don't know. I'm so lost.
Well, that's a glimpse of what lies ahead. So patreon.com/RSBNB. We got 2 audio questions this week, so we're going to dive right in. The first one is from the RR Man.
Hey, it's the RR Man here with another couple of quick questions for you. First off, Shane, I would like to request what you requested to be requested last week, the plane ride story. Discussion topic, let's go. Second off, another one for you, Shane. Double dipping a bit, you lucky bugger. But anyway, I would like to know, did you listen to that Earth show yet? You really should have. It was the best Earth show ever done of all time. Just don't let them do one ever again. Peace out.
Well, I'll start at the back and say I haven't listened to the Earth show yet.
Okay, well, yeah, give that a listen.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that at some point. But plane ride story. So to start it off, it's about a 9-hour flight from London to Vancouver. And, Heathrow Airport, one of the biggest airports in the world, one of the busiest airports in the world, you get one plane delayed, it backs up the entire queue of everybody waiting to take off and even board the plane. So suffice to say, the plane heading back was about an hour and a bit delayed. Plus, we also had some parking troubles in terms of delays on the runway. So we were about an hour and a half, 40 minutes late leaving from the UK. So that didn't play well for getting back to Vancouver. I'll talk about that at the end of it. But I am 6'2", and business class tickets are expensive. So you're pretty much relegated to economy, right? And let's just say that on its own, under optimal conditions, spending 9 hours on a plane in a cramped seat isn't really fun when you're tall, right? So that was side number one. Side number two is that the neighbors on this plane ride were absolutely annoying. There were seats moving behind. There were seats moving in front. There's folks being annoying on the left and whatnot. It was just a really annoying group of neighbors where I happened to be seated. The family up front was causing troubles. The people behind also, and as I mentioned, there was also an annoying one on the left as well. So it just wasn't one where you could kind of tune everybody out. There was always some kind of disruption, whether it be someone leaning back too far or someone pushing forward too far. And thankfully that didn't happen on the way out. So that was a plane ride there. But of course, being late, missed the connecting flight in Vancouver. back to Edmonton, though with the booking policy and the fact that Edmonton-Vancouver is a fairly active flight route, I was just able to get on the next one, and that was no problem. But it meant getting back at 9 p.m. So that wound up being a day that I was actually up over 24 hours.
Oh. You didn't have to deal with any babies, though, did you?
That was one of the annoyances.
Oh no! Oh no! Poor kids. They got their ears, and poor everyone else too. Gosh.
Yeah. So you can see exactly what that meant. So, but I mean, in an effort to try and get to actually hit the first plane ride, got to go through a very abridged customs and immigration front coming back through Vancouver, which is nice that they actually do be able to skip the lineup and whatnot. It was actually a kind of almost like a VIP treatment thinking about it. So that was nice.
But, there you go, Shane.
That's one benefit that we actually have today with the high-tech world, with biometric passports and whatnot, and the fact that everything done check-in-wise and everything done immigration-wise is done on a computer with the biometric passport. It makes it a lot easier to actually clear those things than it used to be in the past. So that was actually one benefit that was neat to discover coming back through that. So that's the plane ride backstory. It all started with a delay in London.
I can't believe you're 6'2", Shane. I never pictured you being taller than me. Tycho must be a freaking giant then.
I think he's about 6'1", 6'2".
Oh, so he's your height. I thought he was taller.
No.
Than you. Okay.
I got it all in the legs, actually.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's even funner on a plane ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So, anyways, let's move on to our next one. The next one's from Pernasius.
G'day guys, it's Pern here with another question for you this week. Sadly, the debate on the stone spirits is still going 2 months on, with the call for them being removed not slowing down. While I wouldn't mind seeing them replaced on the boss drop logs, I still think they're perfectly fine as a Slayer creature drop. My question is, what if they found another use for them? Two options I have thought of is, first, and I know how much Shane loves his Togglescape, but maybe if they have the ability to toggle them to either give the current double ore drop as it is, or you could toggle it and send the ore directly to the bank in a similar way to porters. This would give a nice use for them, especially for those people who don't have access to porters as yet, and add a little bit more value to them. My second use for them, and this is sort of what I'd really like to see, is to make them usable for corrupted salvage that would work in a similar way to the old mechanic in smithing, but using stone spirits on the anvil instead of actual ore. And this will allow the players to either make the corrupted bladed, spiky, blunted, or plated salvage, which can then be broken down for the invention components, but for no or very minimal XP. Taking 30 seconds to make one addy or a rune scimitar to break down for a 2% chance at a subtle component is, it's just crazy in my view. I always used to make my own, and it would take less time to make a full inventory's worth. Even if they did allow them to be traded, it would probably be another money-making item for the smithers, in that they could trade the corrupted items to those who want to get the components they need without making the items themselves. And with no elk value, it wouldn't be a money-making thing for the elkers to just generate gold into the game. I don't think removing these is in any way a good idea, but a few better uses for them might be in order. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Happy scaping to you all.
You know, I initially liked the idea of having them act as porters, but I think the simpler action, because it doesn't add more toggles, and it fixes another problem, is to do what he said with corrupted salvage. Because, we need that in-game still. There still needs to be a way to make that in-game, I think.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with the salvage part. I'm not so much on the porter option.
Yeah, not
just
the porter
because
option.
I don't want to devalue porters or Grace of the Elves. I think you work for those, and I just would rather. Now, if anything, maybe you can toggle it to a 10% XP boost or something like that. I wouldn't mind that as much, but I don't want to make them porters. But the salvage, yeah, definitely.
And if you're going to do the salvage option, make it how it used to be, where they require 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stone spirits based on what you're making.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that'd be totally fine. And I think that'd actually be better because really, right now, like when they replaced stone spirits with the ore drops, that was fine. Except that, adamant used to be, it was something like it was actual money, and now an adamant stone spirit, it's
not worth it.
Absolutely
But if
nothing.
you could take those and make adamant salvage instead, you'd be having a different
It
conversation.
would be something. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not, and I've never been one that wanted them out. I didn't want
that was David
high level ones coming
initially.
in. Like, I didn't want them to be adding the high level ones, but they did. But I don't think they came into with the numbers that I was afraid that they would. So, it seems to have worked out. Yeah, I think the salvage is actually
that's the way to go, and that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump up and down about that one, and this is turning out to be a really simple discussion topic because we agree on it. Just no porters, make it all about salvage and have the multiples 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. And in some ways, I think that would also provide a nice lineage back to how smithing used to be without needing to go into Daemonheim too.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be good for XP. It wouldn't be good for profit. It'd just be good to break stuff down with.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, they're spirits. They're stone spirits, so they have the spirit of the old skill in them.
It's true.
So that's actually a really damn good idea. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
All right. If you guys want to send your own questions or discussion topics in, email them to questions@rsbnb.com, or you can leave them at update.rsbnb.com/ask, our forum threads each and every week. We didn't put one up this week because I knew the show was going to be packed. Or you can just send us a DM on Twitter or poke us on Twitter with a mention at RSBANDB. So let's talk about tech news then, shall we?
All right, let's get into it.
So Spotify. Normally when it comes to anti-competitive practices, we talk about Apple or Facebook. But this week we're actually talking about Apple in this regard. This is a post that was penned by the CEO and founder of Spotify, Daniel Ek, where he says that he wants consumers and innovators to have a level playing field here. And the goal was to, of course, reimagine the audio experience by giving consumers the best creativity and innovation that they have to offer. And he wants to be able to operate in an ecosystem in which fair competition is not only encouraged, but guaranteed. And with this, Spotify has filed a complaint against Apple with the European Commission, which, of course, is the regulatory body that keeps competition fair in the EU. And the reason for this is because they say in recent years, Apple has introduced rules to the App Store that purposely limit choice and stifle innovation at the expense of the user experience, essentially acting as both a player and a referee to deliberately disadvantage other app developers. And after trying unsuccessfully to resolve the issues directly with Apple, we're now requesting that the European Commission take action to ensure fair competition. And to illustrate what he's after, he's got a couple of examples. In particular, the fact that digital services pay a 30% tax on purchases made through the Apple ecosystem if you upgrade to the premium Spotify service. And what he says with that is that they would have to artificially inflate the price of their premium membership well above the price of Apple Music in order to make the money that they want to make. And to keep the price competitive, that's something they can't do. And he says, as an alternative, we choose not to use the Apple payment system, forgoing the charge that Apple applies a series of technical and experience limiting restrictions on Spotify, including limiting their communication with customers, including outreach beyond the app, and in some cases they aren't even allowed to send emails to our customers who use Apple. Apple, they say, also routinely blocks our experience-enhancing upgrades, and over time this has included Spotify, locking Spotify and other competitors out of Apple services such as Siri, HomePod, and the Apple Watch. So Spotify is filing this complaint, and they set up a website also called timetoplayfair.com, and in a nutshell what they want is they want apps to be able to compete fairly, not based on who owns the App Store, that consumers should have a real choice in payment systems rather than being locked in, and finally, App Stores should not be allowed to control communications between services and users, including placing unfair restrictions on marketing and promotions that benefit. Now, the issue with this is that this has been the case for years in the Apple ecosystem. We know it, you know it, I know it. You're locked into Apple Music if you want to use Siri or your watch, or you can't have an official email client. You can run another email client, but if you tap that mail link, it won't open up in Gmail, that kind of thing. And App Store-wise, things are similar. And it's been this way for a long time. And yeah, I agree with what the CEO of Spotify is saying here. But I think that something bigger needs to be done other than writing this blog post and challenging Apple. Nothing's going to change by just doing this. I think if they really wanted to make an impact, they need to pull Spotify from the App Store. Go nuclear.
Well, I guess that would be one way, huh?
Because Apple is not going to bend and change. You'll recall we talked about Gab before on the show, the social network that they say has been focused around free speech and freedom of expression, which of course leads to many different views populating the platform. And as such, there has been racist views that have surfaced, and Apple has then, of course, banned the app from their platform. And, this is kind of the same thing in that regard, in that Gab is different in that it can be run as a web app, whereas you can't really run Spotify as a web app on your phone. It just doesn't work. It doesn't provide the right experience. And, I don't think Apple's going to change on this front, unfortunately, and that's why I think they need to go nuclear.
And they never have.
Exactly.
That's the thing. It's like you pick the fight with the one group, the company that...
That's never going to change.
No, they've always done this. Like, why don't you ask Bill Gates about this? Like, they don't play with others. They don't. They play in their own sandbox.
The best way to go about this would be to remove the app from the App Store and make the web app of Spotify be the flagship. And you can do this. Just look at what Google is doing with Play Music. They're offering, 320 kilobit music out of a web app. Spotify could do that, but Spotify artificially limits the quality of the music that plays through their web app. So the solution is there. It's called the web. And granted, the experience won't be great on Safari for doing it, but they would send a much bigger shot across the bow of Apple by removing themselves from the App Store and focusing on a web-first experience.
Yeah, I don't...
I think that's the answer, unfortunately.
And you know what?
Because I don't think Apple's going to change otherwise.
Well, and what are they... Okay, as a user, at one time I had Spotify. I'm an Apple user. I didn't have any problems. It didn't bother me at all. Everything worked the way it was supposed to work, and I still listen to my Spotify.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, Apple Music is kind of trash. Like I don't like it.
And it's like it at all. The only reason it's successful is because it's the easy solution for Apple users.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I think at some point they're probably going to have to do what you suggest. But then again, at least they were smart to take it to the EU because they would have gotten nowhere here.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with this, but I think this is a good first step, But it's been this way for years. I don't know why it's happening just now. I think the next step needs to be nuclear.
Why not? Go big or go home, right?
Yeah. Now, speaking of also going big this week, Microsoft today announced Xbox Live for any iOS or Android game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're bringing the Xbox Live network to these devices. They're also publishing a new software development kit for game developers to bring this functionality to any game that runs on iOS and Android. You know what this means? RuneScape could have Xbox Live achievements at some point.
Oh, sweet. Hell yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Because this is going to be an SDK that works on both. We know Jagex is developing on both. And I don't know what kind of framework or what kind of process is being used on there. But if they could insert this SDK into it, they could potentially make RuneScape achievements be part of Xbox Gamerscore.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, yeah, let's do that.
And the reason this is also interesting is because it's a signal from Microsoft that Xbox is no longer just Windows 10 and the Xbox One. It is any device that can play games. And in some ways, this is an effort to get ahead of Amazon, who has their game streaming service, NVIDIA. But it's also rumored that Google could be working on a Google Play gaming streaming service as well. So this is a way of building Xbox as a service, essentially, and branching out so that regardless of what happens to the PC and the Xbox One, Microsoft Xbox will be here for the foreseeable future.
And see, and I was hoping that they would give PlayStation all it was worth next generation.
Well, I mean, in theory, PlayStation could do this if they wanted to.
Yeah, no, they could. I mean, I just wanted to. I don't want them to shy completely away from the hardware side because I want that competition is what drives it.
I think they'll continue to develop hardware. Make no questions. Okay. I'm just saying if something did happen to it, it would still exist.
Well, that's good.
So game developers will ultimately be able to pick and choose which parts of Xbox Live to integrate into their game, and they'll all be enabled through a single sign-in to a Microsoft account. And Microsoft is, of course, using its identity network, so you don't necessarily even need to use a password with this as well. And also quoting from the article here, they say, our goal is to really unite the 2 billion gamers of the world, and we're big fans of the Xbox Live community, but we don't have any specific announcements as it relates to the Nintendo Switch today.
Well, because they're the Apple of...
Yeah. And, the Switch is an interesting console. Nintendo's interesting, but you don't really compete with Xbox Live.
No, well, Nintendo just doesn't do a lot in cross-play type.
Yeah.
It's like running up against Sony. They still haven't done it yet either. So,
and in regards to the PS4... it also looks unlikely, but Microsoft says they're open to the idea if Sony's willing to allow it.
I think it'd be a win for the players, but I don't know if we'll ever get it.
Yeah. This is just absolutely amazing, because this is coming all before E3.
Yeah, and a bunch of people have pulled out of E3, so they're not even going.
Yeah.
This is also, really interesting.
In Microsoft news this week, related somewhat, Master Chief Collection, which has long been an Xbox exclusive, is coming to PC. All the Halo games.
Sweet. See, I never got into Halo. I've never tried it. I've never played it.
Yeah. My first experience was Halo 3, except this was back on a CRT TV, so it was really hard on my eyes. I recently played Reach this past September, and that was a really fun game. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Huh.
But what this also means is that Xbox Game Pass could also be likely to expand out to other platforms as well. So watch this space.
That's a good service, too. Actually pretty fond of it. And I'm not even an Xbox person.
Yep. So that's the good news. We're going to round off this tech news segment talking about something that we use each and every day, and that is that on March 12th of this year, the World Wide Web, as it was known back in 1989, turned 30 years old.
It's only been 30 years.
Yeah, it was that day, March 12th, 1989, that Sir Tim Berners-Lee submitted his proposal, which you can actually still view on the web. He worked for CERN at the time, the company, or rather the research organization that later did the Large Hadron Collider. And you can actually have a look at this handwritten web proposal of what the internet was going to be about way back then, and you can see how it was all destined to fit together and whatnot. And lo and behold, here we are 30 years later, still using that. He's been very open with this, saying that in some places he feels the web didn't live up to what he's wanted, in particular the openness of it. But nonetheless, let's just say that without this, we wouldn't have any of the stuff that we have today. So I figured this was an anniversary that we should definitely highlight.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. I don't know if you're old enough, Shane. Are you old enough to remember, like, the early days? Like, I remember we were allowed to take a computer home, like, and this was, like, way old school. It was in 4th grade, and we had Prodigy, I think it was.
I remember
they had the old modem.
I remember that. You remember that? I remember Windows 95 and the internet. I don't remember much before that.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think of what you could do then, which was very few things, and then just what we do now every day.
He built the web using a web server from Next, which of course was the company Steve Jobs was running at the time, which would later merge into Apple. That's how he built the first web server, and then in 1991 the first website was launched, which you can actually still see. That's hosted on the CERN website. So,
wow.
And that's of course, we'll have a link to this in the show notes. So, all very good fun. You can find the show notes at update.rsbnb.com. All right, you ready to have a look at Skill of the Month?
Yeah, what's going on with Skill of the Month?
All right, so as we did mention last week, we'll have some changes to announce hopefully next week for the rest of the Skill of the Month. But this month we currently have Sorensen 57 in first place with 9.6 million XP gained in our fishing Skill of the Month. Pernasius is in second with 4 million XP, and in third place we have Flash with 2.9 million XP gained. So look forward to seeing some interesting changes coming for Skill of the Month. Okay. All right. Achievements. We have more than last week, but nowhere near as much as we had for Double XP Weekend. So I'll get us started. So starting off this week on March 13th, we have Kinksy with 99 Divination. Also on the 13th, Derpalt New with 99 Woodcutting. On March 12th, Derpalt New again with 99 Dungeoneering. Also Forax Kratos with 99 Farming. On the 10th, we have Duke Juker with 99 Invention. On March 9th, we have Crazy Lady with 99 Farming. And finally, on March 9th as well, we have Dianima with 99 Constitution.
Nice. Well, then we have Derpalt New with 99 Divination on March 9th. We have Blind Man 0122 with 99 Agility on March 8th. We have Sax Peeler. Don't say that too fast. Okay. With 99 Smithing on March 8th. We have Ishk with 120 Dungeoneering on March 8th. Pop O with 120 Defense on the 7th. And Barrage Tank with 120 Slayer on March 7th. Nice job, everybody.
Nice achievements. Good work. Good work, all. All right. Time for Pick of the Week, where we share something that interests us. So what have you got for us this week?
This week I'm going with a book. Now I'm obviously listening to the audio version because that's kind of what I do. But the new book by George R.R. Martin, Fire and Blood, tells the history of the Targaryens. And so this is the author of the Song of Ice and Fire, otherwise known as the Game of Thrones series. And instead of finishing When's the Winter that we've all been waiting for many, 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 many years, he decided to write this one. But it's okay because it's a really good book, and it tells the whole history from Aegon the Conqueror all the way up until where we are now in the present day in that world. And it's been a really good read so far. It's about 23 hours long.
Holy.
Like listening to
736 pages if you're reading the paper version.
Yeah, and one nice thing, like if you do the Audible like subscription thing, like so I pay like $15 a month, but I get a credit every month. So essentially, I was able to walk away with $15, and this book is a lot more than that. So if you can use the credit, use the credit for it. And I've really been enjoying it. Like it's really gotten me back into the world, and I only hope that someday we get a decent Game of Thrones game. Because man, it would be so cool.
That'd be an interesting reference. Game of Thrones without a game.
Yeah, right. Well, there's something about dragons, man. Like, and if you're into the dragons, the Targaryens are just, they're so cool. I mean, take away the incest stuff, but everything else is really cool about them. And yeah, so I've even went so far as I had an outfit that made me a Targaryen because I had the Shadow Drake. So I had to have the Shadow Drake, and I had the black armor and everything, and the platinum hair. Oh yeah, I've went all out with it.
How does it look compared to the Elven Sniper set?
Well, that's one of a kind. That's a classic. It looks good for fashion, but the Elven Sniper is that's one of a kind. A special place for that. But yeah, Fire and Blood, the history of the Targaryens. So pick of the week.
Very good. Fire and Blood's a Targaryen history. Amazon, Audible, practically anywhere you can find books. Well, let's talk about what we've been up to this week. This week for me, I mentioned last week as we were getting underway, I was just about to start with my Masterwork armor, and just before the show, I have finished my first set of Masterwork.
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
I think I'm going to trim it and customize it too.
Yeah.
Just so it's all out, and so I have it. I think you got to go. I think you got to take it to that top level.
You do. I mean, let me tell you from experience, you definitely do. Because you feel like there's something missing, and yeah, you do.
Especially with the +2 prayer bonus this week, and it's set effect. Yeah. Oh, just very nice.
Yeah.
And that's all I've been doing on game. I have gone to check the farm to make sure everything is okay and collect stuff there. But aside from that, that's it. Haven't left the Artisan's Workshop aside from that. So.
I feel your pain, man. I know that grind. I know that feeling.
How about you?
So this has been a really interesting week. So instead of running accounts for money, what I have been doing is kind of running, bringing back juniors so that I could play, like I said, play quests that I wanted to play and kind of work them together to gather resources for double XP weekends in the future. So rather than, spending a bunch of money, like I'm doing farm runs with both of them, and I'm, I got Chaos Giants down in my dungeon that I'll do on the main while I'm doing stuff with Junior. And I'm going through crap. They're probably home. Anyway, right at the end. But I'm just unlocked Invention because I was 6 levels away from unlocking Invention on my second account. And I'm like, let's just go ahead and do it because I knew I was going to do a lot of mining. I knew I was going to be doing a lot of smithing. And that kind of stuff, and everything that you do, you can gain Invention XP. So I'm like, let's just go ahead and do it. And I unlocked it last night, and I had some cogs that I don't even know where they came from. I must have them from some point, and so I went from.
You got them from the post-defeat event.
Okay. Well, it worked out perfect because I think when you get done with the invention tutorial, you're like level 4. I went all the way to 26.
Okay, 27. And you want 27.
Yep. Yeah. Because then you can do all the tools.
Yep.
So it's it worked out perfect. So I'm loving it. I mean, this is the first time in probably a year I played 2 accounts, and I actually haven't touched any other games. So I'm being faithful for once to RuneScape.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode, so I don't believe there's anything else. I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
If you want full show notes, you can find that at update.rsbnb.com, or you can join us in our friends chat, BitsBytes. You can also follow us on Twitter for everything throughout the week. And with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Take care, everyone.
See ya.